it off.
Yeah, we'll go back and forth.
And one. There we are. Did I really bump that the whole time that it was sitting here?
I didn't hear anything.
No, I had a different screen up covering up our little intro here. So sorry about that, folks. Anyway, welcome to TCG Global Security Consultant, Maritime, and American Legionnaire, service provided by TCG Global. I'm in here with Intrepid this evening. I'm Abraham. We're going to be your host discussion tonight, and boy, do we have a lot to cover. I don't even know where to begin, so I'm going to begin where it makes the most sense to me, and it probably will to a lot of you. I'm going to start in the Bible. I can't find a better place to go, especially in a time like we're in right now. So it's been brought up to me, and I was actually kind of back and forth today with several people well known in the podcast community. We have no sound.
We got sound.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Got sound. Hang on a minute. I've got somebody here that's supposed to monitor all that, but they're not very tech savvy, so they have really no clue what how to check and double check and recheck how the sounds and everything works. So I'm having issues here, but let me just make sure we got sound. Obviously, nobody's jumped on here on the link tonight, which I asked several people to be on here so that they could at least help us kind of make sure that we're on target here with our sound and our streaming quality and all that, but it doesn't look like it's happening. So give me 1 minute.
Well, I can hear you, and we just persevere.
All right. Well, I've checked everything, and all my buttons say I'm good to go. Okay. K9's here. We got a sound check. K9, can you hear us? Got sunshine in here. Cool. Everybody's jumping on. Good. I'll back up and start all over again. Hey, that can't beat that. Bye. You, K9. Appreciate it, brother. All right. So that takes care of that. I don't really have anything pretty to put up on the screen for you guys tonight, other than probably the most interesting map that I've got that I've been looking at throughout the day. So I'm going to back up and start all over here now that we're getting some folks in here that are part of our community. And if you don't mind, Intrepid, keep an eye on that comment side for me while I do this.
Yeah, got it.
Appreciate it, brother. Well, I'm not having any rum or Budweiser or Coors or Guinness or whiskey or anything. It's been a long weekend, guys, or a long week, I should say. You guys probably understand why. So we're going to have a little instant coffee with some Black Rifle coffee. And I'm looking to see if I can find any other kind of coffee to put in my coffee, more coffee out of it. So this is TCG Global Maritime Security Consulting. We are providing a service called American Legionnaire. And we are at Patreon for those that are interested in going over there and looking at some of the intelligence drops that we've made. Just in the last 2 days, we've dropped some things over there that we're not sharing publicly, only to members. And primarily because of the sensitivity of them, as well as the sources that we're speaking to. We want to kind of let things slowly leak out. We've got a couple contacts in the media world, mainstream media, of course, and a few other alternative media. And we want to kind of throw things out a little bit at a time. Some of this stuff's kind of big and tough to swallow, but We do have some things posted over there that are not going to be posted on Discord. If they are at any point posted over, they will be at a later date. Probably not anytime soon. So this is going to be the Patreon page for those that are new here or anybody that's in here that hasn't jumped over here on the Patreon yet. I'm actually showing information on here that I'd rather not everybody see, but that's fine. But I'm going to give you guys a real quick post overview tonight, kind of what's going on here and the stuff that we're digging into and kind of what you can look forward to if you go and get on there. It's $5 a month, $8 or $12 a month, depending on what tier you want to be in. The highly sensitive stuff, the things that we don't really want to put out in the public just yet, or things that we're slowly feeding our media counterparts, they'll be posted in the $12 a month tier. We make them pay us. You know, they want the information and they want our analysis and kind of what we're seeing, and they want information from our point of view, from the sources we speak with or communicate with. They're gonna have to pay up. Most of them don't have a problem with that because they get a nice little company credit card from whatever media corporation they work for, so it's not like they're using their own money anyway. So anyway, that's going to give you a little bit of a peek into what's going on over Patreon. I'm going to drop this now, and we're going to go back up here for a real quick sec. I'll put a good map up here for you guys, and I'll explain this map here in a minute. And, of course, we'll get into why this is a critical discussion tonight. I'm going to start in the Bible. Again, not everybody here is a Christian, but join with us and at least follow along with that part of it. And if you would like to share what you believe in, that's fine. We're open-minded here. We accept everybody from every religion. We're not hypocrites, and we're not bigots when it comes to that. So, but me and my brothers, we're gonna share in the Word, and I'm gonna read from the Bible. I think that's a great place to start now concerning everything that's happening and going on and has developed over the last 72 hours and the last 2 weeks. I'm going to start in Ezekiel 38. Several people sent that to me today, and really it just kind of Ezekiel 38 popped out and hit me a lot in my communications with the people I'm talking to. So I'm going to read through the entire chapter 38, every verse, and then we'll open up Joe, and I'll kind of go into as far as what I'm going to be showing on the screen here. Hopefully everybody can see that screen and we got good sound tonight. I've also been given some pointers as far as the camera being a little more visible for everybody to see me. I don't know why anybody would want to see me. It's hard enough for me to get up in the morning and look in the mirror, but some people want to see me more. They want me to be more in the screen like Intrepid is and kind of be more interactive with you guys as well. We may bring on another person in here into this war room with me. And, of course, Intrepid may have one or two and where he's at on occasion. And they're going to be actually bouncing questions off of us while we're in the Sitrep and breaking this information down. So you guys can put that. You're hilarious, K9. That's great, bro. Probably not, though. No, not. I keep that on a different screen, bro. So anyway, I'm not going to read the comment, but it's very adult in nature. But that's great. So anyhow, now that he got my mind completely off track here, the other person would basically be kind of my bouncing board, my backboard to bounce information off of. If I'm going through the Sitrep and breaking things down, and the maps and the data we're looking at, or I'm reading through one of the intelligence summaries or insults, they may hit me with questions, and they may be also following you guys in the comment section. That way they're reading your questions and they're right here to hit me with it. So it's more of an interactive podcast rather than me spilling my guts for 30 minutes and then going to Intrepid and us having a back and forth monologue and then finally having a discussion. So, and I'm going to try to figure out other ways to speed this up. Monkey Nation, Monkey has figured out how to do it in anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes, and he's almost on target every time. But I remember when it took, a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago when he started, and I know how much he's grown over that time and how hard he's worked on his podcast. And I know how much time and effort it takes to get in there and really get this thing down and drilled into where you can post your target, have your stopwatch in your head, not in front of you, and kind of know where you're at on the clock as you're going through all this information. There's so much of it, guys. I could possibly sit here for 6-8 hours and just spill everything else to you. If you guys are interested in maybe doing that one day, I will sit here for as many hours as it takes. Just direct message me and kind of give me your opinion, your pointers, and what ideas you come up with. Maybe you've seen other podcasters do things that you'd like to see here, and we'll look at it. So I'm going to go back to the scripture here, and I'm going to read chapter 38 out of Ezekiel in the New Testament. And I'm going to start, and I'm going to read through chapter 38, and then we're going to move on. The Lord's great victory over the nations. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech. I'm not very good with Bible names, guys, so bear with me. And Tubal, everybody knows Tubal. Prophecy against him and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with your whole army. Your horses, your horsemen fully armed, and a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandishing their swords. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets. Also Gomer with all its troops, and Beth Togarmah from the far north with all its troops, the many nations with you. Get ready, be prepared, you and all the hordes gathered about you. Take command of them. After many days you will be called to arms. In future years you will invade a land that has recovered from war, whose people were gathered from many nations to the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. They had been brought out from the nations, and now all of them live in safety. You and all your troops and the many nations with you will go up, advancing like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land. This is the sovereign Lord says. On that day, thoughts will come into your mind, and you will devise an evil scheme. You will say, I will invade a land of unwalled villages. I will attack a full and unsuspecting people, all of them living without walls and without gates and without bars. I will plunder and loot and turn my hand against the resettled ruins of the people gathered from the nations, rich in livestock and goods, living at the center of the land, Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish and all her villages will say to you, have you come to plunder? Have you gathered your hordes to loot, to carry off silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, and to seize much plunder? Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say to Gog, this is what the sovereign Lord says. In that day, when my people Israel are living in safety, will you not take notice of it? Will you come from your place in the far north, you and many nations with you, all of them riding on horses, a great horde, a mighty army? You will advance against my people Israel like a cloud that covers the land. In days to come, Gog, I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I am proved holy through you before your eyes, before their eyes. This is what the sovereign Lord says. You are the one I spoke of in former days by my servants, the prophets of Israel. At that time, they prophesied for years that I would bring you against them. This is what will happen in that day. When Gog attacks the land of Israel, my hot anger will be aroused, declares the sovereign Lord. In my zeal and fire wrath, I declare at the time there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. The fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the beasts of the field, every creature that moves along the ground, and all people on the face of the earth will tremble at my presence. The mountains will be overturned, the cliffs will crumble, and every wall will fall to the ground. I will summon a sword against Gog on all of my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord. Every man's sword will be against his brother. I will execute judgment on him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him and on his troops and on the many nations with him. And so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I'll make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know what I am, the Lord. It's Ezekiel 38 of the Bible. The reason I kind of read that tonight, and hopefully my audio is doing good. Intrepid, I think, would be yelling at me if it wasn't. So the reason I wanted to cover that, and I think a lot of people were sending me that throughout the day, was because of what it means, as it's one of the books in the end times, Revelations. I remember growing up and going to church, being born and raised in a very strict Roman Irish Catholic household, and going to Roman Catholic school, learning Latin, going through all the motions, catechism, confirmation, the whole 9 yards. No, Canine, I wasn't your altar boy or anyone else's, but I know that's coming next. So, yes, long story short, I don't remember ever learning of or reading much out of Ezekiel and learning about Gog and Magog. I remember learning a lot about Revelations. Maybe March or April of every year, it seemed like in the Catholic Church, they would go through that right around or before after Easter. They'd go through the end times after they went through the resurrection. And I don't remember learning a whole lot of the actual Bible itself, but I do remember listening to a priest or a bishop get up and do a whole lot of talking about what their interpretation or perception of the Bible was and what it means and what it should mean to me and the rest of you. And, well, I'm not part of any religion that does that anymore. I'm kind of a lone wolf in that respect. I'm on my own. I'm trying to find my way, and I found the non-denominational Christians, and that's kind of where I'm sticking to. And trying to get on the right path as far as that goes. And with everything that's going on right now and what we're going to talk about tonight and what I'm going to show you, kind of will bring a lot of that into perspective. In the Bible, it says the lands of the north, the armies in the north. It keeps talking about all the armies of the north. And if you look at Israel's map and you look at the enemies of Israel, right now, they're not enemies of Israel. They're allies of Israel. We got Turkey. We got Russia. We even have Iran. Iran says they would love to destroy Israel. They will never not promise or swear to do that. But Turkey and Russia are not bedfellows with Israel. They never, suddenly now they are. And I'm going to cover some information tonight real briefly as I get through this, where Israel's now offering to share nuclear energy and nuclear weapon secrets to the Abraham Accord countries, which means Israel's willing to share these with countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia and other member states that are in the Abraham Accords agreement. To me, that sounds like a huge no-no. Why would you do that? But again, I'm not educated enough in what's going on in Israel to understand why they're doing that. But in the grander picture, I don't think that's a smart move. I think that kind of is foretold in the Bible where that winds up. And but according to the Bible and Christian belief and the Scripture, Israel will survive. That's the Holy Land and the chosen people of Jesus and our Lord, and that will in the end. That will survive. The rest of the world may burn, but Israel will not. And God will take his children home. That's my understanding. You got anything to add to that real quick, Intrepid?
Nope, except Ezekiel is Old Testament, but
is it?
You're on a roll. I'm not going to get
All right, well, I'll quit. Did I say old or new?
You said old.
I did say new.
You said new, correct. Not that I listened, but yeah, I did.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're the theology expert here.
That doesn't mean anything. Gee.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm still an infant when it comes to the Christian religion. I hate to call it a religion. The Christian belief and the understanding. I'm an infant in this, so I'm still new. I'm still learning, but hopefully you guys will have a whole lot of critiquing and input on helping me learn. So I'm excited about that.
We're all infants. The people, all you got to do is open up your mind and your heart, and everything you need to know will be implanted in there. So have it. Keep going.
Good God, man. Okay. All right. So the first thing we covered, and I hope everybody can see the screen. If I need to make it bigger and take me an Intrepid off of here, I could do that. If you guys want me to do that, just let me know. Oh, we got... All right, K9, you're confusing me, but that's all right. So looking at the map, Monkey's covered this, but those here that are not following Monkey 3 times a week and on the weekends that aren't staying up with all the data and intel, this is a map of military vessels that are visible to the ALS or AIS system, which is a tracking system. I'll let Intrepid break that down if you guys need to know exactly what that is, but it's like an ADS on an aircraft. It helps track vessels at sea like a radar would track an aircraft in flight. So what we're looking at, obviously, there's a whole lot of activity all the way around Europe. And I'm going to point out specifics on what's going on here in a minute. But first, we're going to go over here. And we're going to drill down a lot deeper, I think, than Monkey does. Because he's got a lot to do and a lot to cram into a 30, 40-minute sit rep. And you guys can take your sweet time here with us, and we'll try to go through as much as we can. If it takes us an hour or 2 hours, we'll get it done. Let's start up in the northwest corner of the United States. There's a very interesting submarine base up in this area near Seattle, and I've been there. I'm not going to point it out in the map. I wouldn't do that, but it's not like any of our enemies don't know where it's at as it is. But I just don't want to draw too much attention to certain things that are out there right now, where things may be going on, activity may be busy. They don't need any more attention. But what Monkey points out and what I want to stress is the Pearl Harbor effect. Right now we're seeing a lot of dots, and we only see a few arrows in here. That's going to change as we go down our coastline. But right now in the Northwest, this is a lot more activity than we've seen, I would say, in the last maybe month or more. And this activity is suddenly increased after the Chinese and the Russian ships were caught up off the shore of Alaska. They were exactly 85 miles off our shoreline in our EEZ, which is the exclusive economic zone. And our Coast Guard spotted them, or at least our Coast Guard went out and acted as spotter, got eyes on. I'm sure our radar and our technology is tracking these vessels at all hours of the day, 24/7, and we already knew they were up there. Right, my understanding is these vessels have been up in that area for almost a month. And then the Coast Guard went out, put eyes on them as they got a little too close for comfort to our shoreline. Coast Guard went out, made their presence known. They were the closest asset that was there that could go out, fly the American flag, communicate with the vessels, and then whether they got a response or not, I don't know. But they'll use light signaling, radio signaling, several different ways they can do that, even with flags. They made contact. The vessels turned around, did a 180, split their formation. The formation that they were sailing in was a convoy formation, not necessarily an attack formation. They had a structure to their formation while they were afloat. They turned around. They started heading away from the EEZ and broke up their convoy or tactical formation that they were in, and they kind of split up and went their own ways. Sure, they all came back together down the road, but that's what our Coast Guard monitored. That's what our Coast Guard saw. What exactly is going on up there, we don't know. I would assume that it's all about signals intelligence with them right now. They're trying to get close, and they're trying to listen in. They've got satellites that can listen to anything up in the outer space, but satellites have limitations like being at sea and listening and spying on signals communication. Everything has a limitation. So that's kind of a pretty large convoy. I guess a total of seven different vessels, Chinese and Russian mixed. So what that tells us is they're cooperating closely, working together. That wasn't a training exercise. And from what I understand, 7 or 8 vessels is basically half a battle group. So for their size, their navies. They pack on a lot more frigates and corvettes and cruisers than we do when we send out a carrier with a battle group. We might have a little bit less vessel count than they would. They pack it on pretty heavy. Especially Russia, they've always done everything in mass. So what we're seeing right now is a lot of dots kind of along the coast, strategically staged up. Some of these are Coast Guard. Some of these are just government vessels. They can be, here's one that's a Clean Rivers. Well, it's probably a Fish and Wildlife. Could be a contractor up there monitoring. lot of Coast Guard activity up there. United States Navy ship Arrowhead, Coast Guard, Anacapa, I guess is the name of that vessel. But I can go through all these, and you're welcome to do that as well. Shiplocation.com, military tracker, if anybody wants to go look at these. What we're looking for, and Monkey said before, is these dots to turn into arrows. When these dots turn into arrows and they start going out of their coves, their bays, their inlets, the sound here, everything, when they start heading out to open sea and they start leaving their ports, we need to pay a hell of a lot of attention to that. That's a movement that we can see. It's not as, I mean, a lot of these vessels may switch off when that happens. When we go to war, they may switch everything off, and we may not be able to see jack shit on these screens. But for right now, we can watch and monitor their movement. And we start seeing them heading out, eyes on. We're going to be paying close attention to that, making a lot of phone calls to people we have all over the country, trying to say, hey, go out there, get eyes on, tell us what you're seeing, tell us what you're hearing, and report back to us so that we can, analyze it and then put it out if it needs to go out. So that's the northwest corner of the United States. We're going to scroll down. We're not going to really, guess we'll take a real quick peek at Alaska. You got a U.S. Navy ship Loyal and a U.S. Coast Guard Kimball. Neither one of these vessels were involved in that, I'll call it an interdiction of that fleet. MCVP, that may be a Marine Corps vessel, possibly. Not positive on that, so don't quote me on that. But those vessels were more up in this area of Alaska when they were spotted and tracked and eyes on. I don't see our vessel that was there, Coast Guard vessel. I don't see it at Kodiak. I don't see it anywhere on here that's not popping. So it may be switched off and maybe doing something else. It could be out here tracking that fleet. That battle group, it could be out tracking them and they switched off. They've gone into dark mode, so to speak. But other than that, I don't see a lot of activity up in Alaska. And if there is, we're not seeing it. They may not want us to see it. San Francisco Bay, I'm pretty sure everybody there is either drunk, half naked, or hiding from the other dudes that are drunk and half naked. And, that's the Navy. I can say that. Not a lot of activity in the San Francisco Bay Area. San Luis Obispo, 1 or 2 Coast Guard vessels are usually in that area. They got a station right up here. And of course, Alameda's up here north towards San Francisco. And the Alameda stations actually covers the entire Pacific Ocean of the Indian Ocean. That's their area of responsibility, and they share that with Kodiak. So that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big Coast Guard station up there. Let's scroll down the coast here: Santa Barbara, Oxnard, Ventura, Los Angeles, Long Beach. Little activity in the Long Beach area. A lot of this is going to be local LAPD or Los Angeles County Sheriff, Long Beach Police. There'll be some DHS, Coast Guard, Homeland Security types out there. And then, of course, you'll have 1 or 2, maybe in the Long Beach ports, you'll have 1 or 2 naval vessels at any given time. But not a lot. Most of those will be down south. Let's scroll out and kind of get a little bit better view of the southern Pacific area of California. Obviously, we've got vessels stretched out everywhere. Here's Mercy. That's one of our hospital ships coming into port. Returning from Hawaii, I believe. I'd have to look that up to confirm, but the last I knew, she was over there in Hawaii. We're going to go into San Diego because something on here caught my eye. Now, your vessels that are dealing with a lot of your Marines, your combat battalions, your construction battalions of Navy, your CBs, Naval Special Warfare Group, Swift, and all those guys, they're not going to pop up on it. You're not going to see a lot of that unless they're in a bigger vessel doing exercises. But what I'm noticing, what I'm seeing here, we got a little bit of a naval station here and quite a bit of Coast Guard activity in this area. You got Coronado Island, North Island Naval Air. We usually have 1 or 2 big vessels parked out here. Right now, the Kingfish and the Whiskey are up. Coast Guard Sea Otter, that's just a patrol boat. Another Coast Guard here, but they're all headed out of port right now. And they appear to be all Coast Guard with 1 or 2 Navy in this mix. I don't see a lot of Navy. Safe boat, I'm not sure what that is. Pilot line, Intrepid, you might recognize one or two of these. We got Surveyor parked out there, not moving. The only Navy ship I see right now is the United States naval ship Lori. Rest seem to be Coast Guard, but they're all kind of like creeping out of port and kind of heading out to this area. We've got 3 in a row right here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of warning areas out there. So warning areas to boats, they're outside of our territorial waters, but they're in an area where generally they do naval exercises. So they put out a warning to other boats that there might be missiles firing or other things like that. They can't technically prevent people from going in those areas because they're outside our U.S. territorial boundaries. So they warn people, hey, if you're in this area, you might get blown up by accident. So I suspect that's what a lot of them are doing. They're going out there to do their exercises.
And Monkey talks about the TFRs, and like this is space operations off of Santa Maria right now.
Yeah, so TFRs.
That's gonna be your Vandenberg area, Los Angeles.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. TFR stand for temporary flight restriction. That's the airplane thing, saying don't go here because you might get in trouble. There might be missiles or anything else. The boat equivalent is not a TFR. It's a warning area. So assume that warning areas off our coast where a lot of these boats might be going to for exercises is the equivalent of an airplane TFR.
And I'm not actually, Monkey's covered that, and I actually have it. I just don't have it up now, but it's not showing it. The only thing I do have out here is the wildlife protection area boundary between Los Angeles, San Diego. But there is a big red marker out here, and they also have something called NOTAMs, or Notice to Air Mission. Those will also be similar to a TFR, and a lot of those are more military and space related. They're red in color versus yellow in color. That's a cautionary. Red's obviously a warning, stay away. The FAA puts that out. There are 2 big markers out here off of Baja and off of the southern coast of California, just at San Diego South. So a lot of our vessel activity when they go out and they start doing their training exercise, or maybe they're just out doing dry test runs on new vessels, and they could be doing anything out there. They could be out there doing surveying. There's no telling. Hydrographic work. There's a lot of things they could be doing. And when they're out there, a lot of these vessels will head right down here just south of the Mexican-U.S. border. And that's where your big training area is, down here, right off the Mexican coastline. Not so much up here towards San Diego and north to Long Beach, because there is a lot of commercial traffic that comes in and out of there. Anything else to add to that?
Nope, that's true what you said. So just keep at it. Yeah.
If I get it wrong, I know you'll call me out.
No, you're doing fine. I've spent a lot of time in San Diego on the boat, and that place is packed with military. Oh my God. Not to mention that's where Bud's is located, so they got every kind of military anything there. It's
and the retired guys that refuse to leave, they just want to sit out there on their boats too, and they're living the life right now.
Yep.
As long as they're on the boat. Once they step on shore, on the dock, man, it's California all over again. So good luck with that.
Yeah.
Better you than me. So you got Corpus Christi, you got Galveston, we got the Houston area. All kinds of activity, usually around the Nolens area, Louisiana. Even as far as Beaumont, Baton Rouge, they even got a lot of area at Baton Rouge. And my accent's starting to come out. I can hear it already. We got Gulfport. Gulfport's always a busy location. Pensacola, of course. We've got Mobile. And I don't see any activity in here that's really worrying me or concerning me. It looks like, for the most part, everybody's parked, and there's a whole lot. There's a U.S. Coast Guard Resolute, which is a pretty neat vessel if you get a chance to do a Wikipedia on that. Pretty neat vessel to read up on. Tampa missed the storm. The storm went south and then, of course, east of it. So probably most of our equipment and our assets that are parked in the Tampa Bay are more safe and sitting and comfortable at the moment. That's not the case down at Fort Myers. They got hit really, really, really hard. This storm was actually a lot, I would say, in some respects, as far as maybe wind goes, it was a lot less disastrous and destructive than past storms. But as far as rain and water amounts, and then, of course, we saw the bays get sucked out where people are taking pictures of the water in the bay, Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Port Charlotte, all this area. All the water was gone. All the water went out to the ocean. The storm pushed it, sucked it, and did, that's why they name hurricanes after girls, because they do all that and take your house away too. I hope I don't offend any of the ladies here. If I did, well, you can slap me later. But a lot of that water got sucked right out of these bays, and I had some folks asking me, is that normal? Is that water coming back, or what the hell happened? Because that's not something you see a lot of, but you will down here. Florida's pretty much at sea level. Most of the entire state is only a couple feet above sea level. So you do see a lot of weird things like that when you have tsunamis and hurricanes. The Keys, always naval activity down here, and everybody is in Key West. You got your 6 branches. I don't think Space Force is allowed to go down there yet. They haven't graduated adult school, so they're probably not hanging out at Key West. I don't think they need a diver program or anything like that, but you do have a lot of military down along the Keys. Homestead, there's an Air Force base there. Again, I don't see a lot of activity down here. It's kind of popping out to me. There's a little bit of Coast Guard activity, but that's normal. A lot of vessels out here going to stress. People taking their sailboats, personal boats out to the extended islands out here, and they need help. So your Coast Guard's always vigilant down there. Plus, you've got the drug runners, and of course, a lot of these vessels are down there just hunting dope runners. Just another Wednesday or Thursday in Florida. That's all. So I'm going to scroll out of this. Looks like we got most of our assets out of Jacksonville. We got one sitting up here, probably going to head out of Charleston, because that storm's going to come right back into shoreline, either Georgia or South Carolina, make landfall again. So a lot of those vessels are probably booked out of there and headed north. It looks like we're pretty busy in Norfolk right now, Virginia Beach area. Again, I only see 2 vessels heading out. The rest of them are all dots. Dots are what we want to see. We want to see a bunch of guys not doing a whole lot sitting inside a port. And as the other guys have talked about, when those all become arrows and they're all headed out to sea, that's called the harbor effect. Get the hell out of Dodge, or you're going to be a huge target. Get up around New York. New York's always busy, but again, a lot of dots. They're probably all going to get their vaccination. I guess that's how you survive a hurricane now, according to the potato in chief. He said that's the best way to prepare for a storm the size of Ian is be sure and you go get vaccinated. I thought it was pretty funny. So we're going to move over here to the Med, the North Sea, the Baltic Sea, Atlantic Sea, all this Arctic Sea. This is a concern. Obviously, every Navy in NATO is out there, and they're tracking. And there's a lot of activity all the way. There's a little less activity down here in the Med than I would have thought we would have seen. I would figure the Med being in the Black Sea so close to Ukraine, we might have seen a lot more activity, but we're not. But Northern Europe and through the Baltics, it's busy. And right in the middle of all this is Russia. This is Kaliningrad. This map's a little different than what Monkey usually has up. It's light, not dark like the Skyglass maps so sometimes I see. But this is Russia over here, and Moscow's down here. Here's Russia. And Norway, of course, up not Norway, but the Netherlands and all that's up here. Here's the Netherlands over here. What country is this? Finland, right? So Finland's had Finland, Norway, as well as Sweden. Everybody has alerted their navies and their militaries to go protect any and all energy assets. So what you're going to see up here in the sea and why everything looks really busy right now, there's still a lot of dots sitting in ports, a lot of boats sitting, so we're not seeing them mobile yet, so to speak. Underway is what you use in the naval terminology. A lot of dots in here, and that's what we want to see. We want to keep seeing dots. We don't want to see arrows. But what we are going to see, and what you're going to be able to notice if you go to other maps and do your research on the internet, you're going to see a lot of offshore rigs, offshore drilling platforms, especially up here in the North Sea between here and England, Scotland, and Ireland. And you see a lot of NATO vessels probably around those. Might see a lot of flight activity with the P-8s and the Orions up there running around looking for activity. Right now, it's assumed that it's sabotage. That's pretty clear. The Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1 pipelines. My understanding is Nord Stream 1 carries crude oil. Nord Stream 2 was going to carry gas, LNG or liquid natural gas from Russia to Poland and Germany. They're saying that both lines have been targeted and have been hit. I doubt that's going to ever be confirmed until they get divers down there, ROVs, so to speak, remote vehicles. They get those down there and they actually get eyes on the damage. And, of course, I'm sure by now they've already got naval vessels sitting out there doing that. The closest I can get you guys to where this occurred that I know of is right close to where the Gunnar Thorsen. That's probably going to be, let's look this up real quick. That's going to be, what flag is that there, Intrepid?
Denmark.
Denmark. Thank you. I don't know my flags very well.
Yeah, they're all crosses up there.
Yeah, I know my enemy's flags. I just don't know our allies' flags.
Blue and white. Denmark is red and white.
All right, so that's a Denmark vessel. I do know that this is generally the area where this occurred. It was off on the Polish side. However, it's not in the Polish economic exclusions. What I see is international waters all through right here. And then I see exclusion zones. That's what these small lines are that run around this island and around the entire edge of every landmass in the water. These are not international waters. It's all exclusive economic zone up here for all these countries in NATO and shared treaty territories. These are obviously territorial waters. It was not in territorial waters of Poland, but it is in a shared economic exclusion zone. And I'm thinking right close to where Gunnar Thorsen is. Somewhere in this area right here is where this pipeline attack occurred. And then, of course, the pipeline runs right into Germany right here. Wow. Again, what we're seeing right here is a lot of activity. Even though we see a lot of dots and we want to see that, we're seeing a lot of arrows too. There are a lot of military exercises going on up there. And they're running these guys ragged with these exercises. What it is they're not as much an exercise as they're an alert status. They'll show up as a NOTAM or AFR and a maritime warning area. They'll show up as an exercise. They'll name it. They'll post it. They'll put the warning order out. You'll see it on the maps. And what they're doing is they're on patrol. They're out there doing what they would normally be doing in wartime. They're looking for enemy vessel activity. They're looking for submarine activity, mine sweeping. They're doing it all. If they're doing it all, why are we getting attacked at a pipeline over here? Yeah. Who was asleep at the wheel? So Monkey sent me, let me grab my other device.
Well, while you're talking about that and looking, Abraham, something I want to mention about that is, I don't have it for you guys to show, but there was an article either June 21 or June 22 out of the Navy Times that talked about that specific area where this pipeline got supposed sabotage. And in this article, they said it was 100% controlled by NATO forces. Number two is evidently 2 days before this supposed pipeline breach, there were 3 United States Navy vessels in that specific area. You know, so take that as data points. If it were the Ruskies, you start to wonder, how did they get there in an area that was supposedly 100% controlled by NATO? That's a question I still have. Anyways, go ahead.
According to Monkey, I'm not going to read verbatim what he sent me because it's incompetent, some of this, obviously. But he did send me screenshot schematic. And then what I am going to share with you, I believe he already shared it out with everybody in Patreon and his followers. At 3 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, which is Zulu for those that are unaware. That's the international date line. One aircraft was a P-8. There was another aircraft that was an NA, from my understanding. And these guys were able to go back into Skyglass and ADS-B and all this and use all their assets and track down every flight pattern and activity in that immediate area at 3 a.m. when this supposedly occurred. Now, they're saying the window is 3 a.m. in the morning. I have not got absolute confirmation on that. What I do know is now they're claiming that the time, and this could be just the media doing what the media does, spitting shit out their face and not having any actual research done or data to back it up. What we are seeing is media putting it out that this leak, this methane and ethane, I'll just call it an ethane leak. It's LNG, natural gas. They were able to locate this and find this leak in the middle of the night. They didn't see the bubbles popping up out of the sea in the middle of the day. Personally, in my opinion, if they were locating it at that time of day with a flyover vessel or aircraft, no vessel on the water intermediary, but flyover aircraft, we do have the technology that can see disturbances in the sea. It would have to be certain types of aircraft, certain types of electronic surveillance equipment on board. But what we do know is that if those aircraft were in the area and if they had, that's when they noticed or spotted this. Let's play the devil's advocate. The United States had no part in this, which most of us don't believe at this point. Let's play the devil's advocate and say the United States was not involved in this. They're not going to go out there in the middle of that expansive ocean and just see bubbles popping up out of the sea. The way I understand it is the leak is massive enough at a 380 to 400 foot depth that by the time that leak, depending on how large the breach is in the pipeline, by the time those bubbles, that gas reaches the surface, it's going to be as wide as 5 football fields, the diameter of 5 football fields, long, wide. And that's not very big when you're considering an aircraft flying at, say, 4,000 feet or up, looking down at the water in the middle of the night. So what Monkey said was they were able to track 2 what appeared to be NATO and or U.S. aircraft, one being a Sub Hunter, which is a P-8, in that area at that hour, flying loops, doing their patrol. And were they out there looking for a Russian sub that was down there planting explosives or had been there and already left? Or was it maybe support and overwatch for an American submarine? We don't know. What I will say is it's highly doubtful that Ukraine had anything to do with it. I don't think Ukraine has a whole lot of submarines in their inventory. I just don't see them doing it. If they did do it, they had help. It doesn't sound like Russia has anything to gain or lose from doing this. So I doubt Russia may have played a part in this, but I could be wrong. But from the data I'm looking at and everything I'm seeing, this is more than likely. And I do have a couple of sources telling me that they can give me a thumbs up who ordered it in Washington, D.C. So that's what it's looking like, because this is an American CIA op. Yes, the CIA operates on our submarines constantly. They're ever present around our submarine community in the United States Navy, and they do a lot of this kind of shit. They were talking months and months ago about Russian subs going down to the undersea communications cables and tapping into them to do signals intelligence, surveillance, tap in and listen and intercept signals communication between the mainland of Europe and England, Scotland, and those outer lying areas. That doesn't surprise me. I'm sure we do it as well. Our tech may be a little more advanced than Russia's tech, so we may have a better way of doing that from more of a distance. But regardless, whatever happened to that Nord Stream pipeline, and let me bring this up so I can actually read this off of my Discord here. I did post it earlier. Looks like my dog's over here eating a box. Let me bring this up real quick. I believe I put it in the main channel here. Russia sabotages their own pipeline to further their advance in Ukraine in their own interest. That doesn't make sense. That pipeline is 51% Russian owned, 49% European Union owned. I don't see why Russia would go in there and do this. I mean, there is the potential of a recovery on that pipeline where they can go down and patch it, fix it, repair it. But we're talking 3 to 6 months to go down there and do this, and it's a huge, huge operation. That requires more than robots down there doing all the work. Divers down at 380 to 400 feet underwater, and that's a huge process to get those guys in that equipment down to that depth and to do this operation. I've gotten a lot of messages, hey, you think the Navy SEALs did this? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Navy SEALs don't do, I mean, not that they can't and not that they won't, not that they haven't. They don't normally do deep water operations. They are not deep water divers. Your salvage, your United States Naval Salvage and EOD guys go and do a lot of that deep water shit. I'm getting a lot of pings from different directions in the Naval Special Warfare Group and community. No, this wasn't SEAL team operators. Well, what about an SDV, a SEAL delivery vehicle? So I know a senior chief who spent a large part of his career in Hawaii with an SDV team, and he's telling me the same thing. Those SDVs are shallow water vehicles. Can they go that deep? Absolutely. Why would you want to put divers that deep in an SDV when you can just go down there with a robot? It makes no sense. And I concur with that. Give me a minute here, guys. My map is rebooting itself, it appears. Okay, let's get back here on target. So I don't believe that Russia had a lot to do with this, but I could be wrong. Next question I propose is, Germany sabotages the pipeline to create the push NATO needs to prevent Spain, France, and Germany from signing agreements with Russia as breakaways in the treaties to prevent suffering this winter. That's some information I also got from the Monkey Nation, that was just two days prior to this event, that these countries were prepared to sit down and meet and discuss buying Russian fuel with rubles. So that's not good. I wouldn't say it's bad for them, but it's not good for NATO. It's not good for the Western world. Third question I submit to you guys is, U.S. sabotages pipeline in an attempt to force Russia into a reaction, escalating or de-escalating the Ukraine conflict at present. That's a possibility. I don't see how going in and hitting and targeting the pipeline would de-escalate anything. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but escalate or de-escalate the situation, U.S. sabotage very, very likely could be. Remember, we do have POTUS in the White House, who's over the last 6-7 months has already made threats and came out and made statements about going after the Nord Stream pipeline and making it, quote, go away. It's over. It's done. So when you make threats like that and then months and months later somebody sabotages it and you've been running your mouth, everybody's going to point fingers at you. Poland and the former defense minister of Poland has already done that. He's pointed fingers at the United States. He's pointing at Washington, D.C. Fourth question I propose, the State Department. Oh, this is not a question. This is just a data point. State Department warning U.S. citizens to leave Russia immediately due to fear of draft or being conscripted. Timing of pipeline explosion, sabotage being the real reason. So would the U.S. Embassy put that notice out in relation or reaction to this pipeline deal? They actually put that out prior to this pipeline being sabotaged. But it is true that there is a fear in Russia that the Russian government will not recognize dual citizenship or other foreign nations' passports. If you're in Russia and you're a male of age, military fighting age, or even younger, and you have dual citizenship or you hold any kind of Russian paperwork, the Russian government may only recognize that paperwork, and they may draft you and send you to the front in Ukraine. There's been discussion that could be a retaliation for the Nord Stream if the U.S. did, in fact, take part in this. Another data point, same 24-hour period, new Baltic pipeline. That's a separate pipeline. I'm going to show you on the map here. The Baltic pipeline runs down in kind of the opposite direction of this Nord Stream pipeline that comes out of Russia. Same 24-hour period, new Baltic pipeline christened and announced as the sabotage occurs on Nord Stream pipeline. What I mean by christened is that this pipeline they switched the power on the generators and they started pumping, and somebody was standing there to cut the ribbon and say, hoorah, now we're pumping gas. That happened in the same 24-hour window as this pipeline sabotage event that took place. So that's something that we need to look at as closely as possible. Final point is if this was Russia, if this was Russian roulette, would you be willing to turn the barrel and squeeze the first round? So who has the most to gain? And who has the most to lose where it concerns the Nord Stream pipeline? At the end of the day, the Nord Stream sabotage event could spark a huge conflict between two nuclear powers. That's what's got all of us kind of not sleeping real good at night. We're watching the nets. We're paying attention to what's going on in the media, the news, and the intelligence community, trying to figure out and get ahead of this as fast as we can so that we can come on here and tell you guys, hey, it's time to, roll up your gear and take serious consideration of getting the hell out of a coastline area or a major urban city area like New York or LA or something. If you happen to be in those areas, maybe start heading to a rural area, grab your kids, your wives, your dogs, your movies, your foodstuffs, your medications, your shoes and slippers, and grab the neighbor's dog too and haul ass. Now, one thing I won't do is come on here and start everybody panicking and scaring the hell out of everybody. I don't want that. I'm not going to do that. But in the 3 years that I've been working on this project and doing this, prior to me retiring from the work that I was doing before, this is the first time that I think we've gone to this level. You can go look up the threat condition, DEFCON or readiness condition, all those different maps and levels on all those different websites. And they're not going to tell you the story that I'm going to tell you right now. DEFCON is not reliable. Readiness condition is at its poorest state in the U.S. military than it ever has been since prior to World War II. The day before Pearl Harbor, we were still in pretty good shape compared to where we're at right now with our military. Our military is being shipped out offshore in mass amounts of flights. Monkey, I think, mentioned earlier today, he was looking at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. And these are the Cambria flights that he talks about that haul our troops around as part of the U.S. Transportation Command, or CAMBR. CMB aircraft is what they call them. Airborne U.S. Transportation Command. Right now we got 3 up. Earlier we had 6. I think Monkey said he had maybe a dozen of them on here. I was trying to listen to that while doing other things. But he did mention there was a lot of activity as far as troop movement goes. He's looking at Biggs down here in El Paso. That'd be Fort Bliss. And he's looking at Ramstein, and he's also looking over in the Asia Pacific, looking and watching troop movement. So my fear is that we are overstretched and we are thinned out over the entire globe. I mean, right now we're sending a shit ton of troops down to Africa because our lovely Tony Blinken went down there and kissed some African ass with some Yahoo down there in some country and made a bunch of friends, and now he's sending a whole shitload of our military down there. And in this administration, in this current state of our country and our government, our State Department's deciding where our military is going to go or not go. The State Department should have nothing to do with that. They should be a partner with the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the President as the Commander-in-Chief and make those decisions. But it seems like more and more all the time, the State Department's kind of taking the lead and making decisions on where to put the chess pieces. What we're seeing is all of our chess pieces being moved out of the United States. What that does is that leaves the homeland here at home vulnerable. Why would they do that? Why would they spread us out so thin, knowing that Taiwan could pop off, Ukraine and Russia could pop off? Anything could happen right now. Is there a plan to get military out of here so that they're not here to fight side by side with the American population when the patriots decide enough's enough? We stand up now or we never have another opportunity, and we take our country back, and we're going to face basically at least 4 to 6 million illegals that have been brought here, 87,000 new IRS CID people, and the rumor mill has it the IRS is having a hell of a time getting people, so let's hope it stays that way. The FBI just shit canned 2,000 people, and they want to bring in 3,000 more. I'm sure the other agencies are getting budgets prepared to go and get approval for hiring more people, because that's what Democrats love. They love bigger government. So they can take a law enforcement agency and add 1 million more people to it. You know, they're all about that. The only people that are going to stand up shoulder to shoulder with the American people if the government decides to come after the assault weapons with a ban is going to be our military, our National Guard, our people, who take their oaths probably a lot more serious than the people who also took it but are looking at a pension rather than their loyalty and their duty to country, God and country. So that's a concern right now. That's kind of on the domestic front, and I'm bringing that whole Russia-European theater thing and kind of mixing it in with the domestic situation. But it's a very real concern. It's a very real threat when we're watching our soldiers being moved all over the world, a bunch of our Marines being sent down to Southeast Asia and the Asia Pacific. We're seeing a lot of our Marine boot camps being integrated, but starting out as 2 separate classes. We got a class of English-speaking Marine recruits, and we have a class with non-English-speaking Marine recruits, because that's what they're doing with these immigrants. They're bringing them into the United States, and they're sending them to recruiters, or they're just directly flying them into our military bases. And if you think they're not training them up, part of that military or army, so to quote unquote, Obama talked about 7-8 years ago, having a different force of government besides law enforcement and military, but having that third branch of service, so to speak, to do a 2-year community whatever. You know how socialists are. They never can be real clear on what they mean by it, and they always speak in tongues none of us understand. But that's what's going on at Pendleton and Parris Island right now. Not Pendleton, but MCRD, San Diego, and Parris Island both right now. And I don't have confirmation yet. I'm waiting on it. But from what I understand, the Army boot camps are pretty much the exact same way as the Marine Corps right now. And what we're seeing is a shit of our Marines being sent out to the Pacific, and a lot of our Army being sent over to Europe. And we're being thinned out. And all of this is a planned operation. This is being done intentionally. And I'll let you guys take that information for what it's worth. I don't have much more to share on that. This Ramstein, the activity, and of course, a day, maybe 2 days ago, this board was pretty thinned out, and now it's pumping. It's busy as hell. So we are watching that. It appears Monkey's keeping a close eye on that as well.
There's a few things I think that you're missing there.
Go ahead. I'm sure I missed a lot. I'm still drinking coffee.
Good. So, the pipeline. It's hard to say who to believe. On the one hand, if you want to get rid of the EU, you go after Germany. The way you go after Germany and Germany's economy is you go after their oil and gas. Cutting that pipeline does it big time. On the other hand, I don't know many people realize this, but of course you've heard the Donbass area of Ukraine, the eastern edge of Ukraine, that was historically very ethnically Russian. And tomorrow, basically in a matter of hours from now, I'll back up, they had an election in the Donbass. And they asked the people in the Donbass, do you want to stay part of Ukraine or become a part of Russia? They overwhelmingly decided to become part of Russia. Now, sometime in the next few hours, the Russian President Putin will formally acknowledge those four areas of the Donbass region to now be part of the Russian Federation, which is going to completely turn the dynamics of this Ukraine conflict. Because now it's, hey, you're attacking Russia. And perhaps this Nord Stream incident that they have is to, pump up even more hatred to, this is why we have to go after Russia. It's going to be interesting to see what happens the next few days. Putin might be a lot of things, but he's not a fool. A lot of people don't realize that Putin is a lawyer. He's an attorney. He's a pretty bright guy. I don't think Putin is going to want to start a nuclear war because he wants to win. He's not going to win if he starts lobbing nukes. But it will be interesting to see what happens when Russia formally adopts the Donbass area to be part of the Russian Federation. Ukraine certainly doesn't want that. Actually, I should even go farther than that. I don't think Ukraine knows what they want. It's the USA and NATO that's pushing their policies. I don't think the USA or NATO cares anything about the Ukrainian people. They just assume kill all of them over there in this proxy war against Russia. But it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. And, when they adopt the Donbass area as part of the Russian Federation, that's going to change an awful lot on how Russia responds to NATO's threats. I don't know if you've heard about that, Abraham, but if you have, what's your thoughts?
I think Germany in the equation with their fuel is they were only getting 20% capacity from that pipeline as is. Mm-hmm. By shutting the pipeline down, which they just did recently, by shutting it completely down and cutting off that 20% that they were getting, that pipeline was in effect not even supplying anything to the EU. Now, the way pipelines work is when you shut a pipeline down, that's a huge, huge maintenance deal. These pipelines need to be running constantly, keeping that pipeline at least flowing with some material going through it keeps their maintenance down to a minimum. When they shut it down, it's like anything in the oil field. When you shut a piece of machinery down, it's a process. It's a process starting it back up. For a pipeline that long and those pumps that big to push that much fluid or that much gas that distance, that is a huge shutdown and a huge startup process on that generation station.
Yeah.
So by shutting it down, which they did, the Russian side, by shutting it down, they made a point. We don't care how much it costs to shut it down and start it back up because we may never start it back up. But they control 51% ownership of that pipeline. Germany was already going to suffer what they would have suffered at that point from the lack of fuel being provided in that pipeline. And it seems like the timing of this whole thing coming up with knowing the Baltic pipeline was getting ready to be completed, and that's a North Sea provider, okay, meaning that there's a lot of North Sea offshore drilling, some onshore drilling. Plus, you've got the Arctic exploration up north, providing all that gas and that crude oil to those lines going down to Europe from the North Sea and from beyond that. So, and I'm not sure if Iceland or Greenland is any part of that particular supply chain for the Baltic pipeline, but I know that was a massive pipeline. They knew that pipeline was going to be completed. But I understand it was almost completed on time, on schedule. So they knew that pipeline was coming. They knew that was going to supply a very large portion of what would be required to sustain at least three of the countries, Belgium, Germany, and Poland. Beyond that, in Europe, a lot of that oil and that gas is supplied from the Middle East, and it's coming up from Turkey and those other pipelines that cross the Med. So it's a different network of pipeline supply. But what we do know is that Europe has never really been in the critical mass red light flashing mode yet. This winter they could have been. We were told they would be. Everybody's screaming and hollering, especially the left, about, oh, the poor Europeans, they're not going to have fuel, so they got to go green power, while the people with a brain in their head are going, They need fuel, and they need to quit shutting down their power plants. They need to quit shutting down their refineries, what they do have, and they need to figure out a way to get pipelines and pipeline supply to themselves. They need to quit being reliant on Russia and the Middle East, same as the United States. And more importantly, Europe needs to stop shutting down their nuclear reactors. That provides electricity. In turn, that provides heat to get them through the winter.
Yeah.
But they've decided they're going to jump on the Green New Deal runaway train on a dead-end track, and they're going to feel the effects of that by the middle of January. And the fuel prices right now, what we're seeing the fuel prices do right now are based off a previous 6-month future purchase. It's called futures in the oil and gas markets for a reason. If our one buddy's in here, let me check, because he might actually be in here, and he knows a little bit about all that market side of it. Burke. I'm going to call him Professor Burke. He is in here, so if he jumps on, we'll put him on, and he can kind of break some of that down for us.
Yeah, but again, I think more than this Nord Stream pipeline is the vote from the Donbass region.
That's that's going to be. I don't know. I'm not ready to go there yet, but what I will say is those people over there are predominantly Russians who left Russia and moved into that region and overpopulated it over decades. You can go back to Vlad the Impaler if you want to, and talk about who was the ruler and ethnicity that ruled that ground. Of course, at one time, the Romans and the Bavarians and the Persians. I think everybody's been. The Turks. I think everybody's been in there. But as of modern times, Russia has pretty much dominated that whole side of Ukraine. And before the curtain fell, that was part of Russia. There was no Ukraine. There was the Ukrainian state in Russia, but there was actually no independent state of Ukraine. So I wish everybody would just shut the hell up, turn around, go home, and let this go. But that's not going to happen. That's not how the world works.
Well, my understanding is.
Let me cover this real quick before I forget.
Yeah, go for it.
So we need to look at the futures price purchase on fuel prices right now and what they're going to be in, let's say, the middle of winter. So this is beginning of October. In 2 months, that'll be December, January. So count back what the fuel price purchase of the barrel was 4 months ago. And that's roughly your 6 month, 5 and 6 and 7 month purchase window on oil futures. Remember that these nations, like in Europe, and these airlines and these major rail companies, all these major corporations, they purchase their fuel out ahead of what they project they're going to need. They don't buy fuel at the gas station like we do. They get a little less price on it because they purchase it out in advance. And there's speculators and projectors that go out and measure that market, and they get it on the barrel price. How many pennies or dollars on the barrel, I don't know. I don't know the specifics. But what I do know, and we do have Bert in there, what I do know is the fuel price today that we're paying for fuel versus the barrel. We're paying what 6 months ago decided, and the barrel is going to decide 6 months from now. And the commercial side, the commercial markets. Welcome aboard, Mr. Bert.
Hello, thank you. I'm going to try my iPhone. Is it making the bad noise again?
No, we're good so far.
Okay, well, I am astonished at your knowledge. You and Intrepid are worldly men, traveled the globe, and I'm very impressed with what you're saying. And honestly, I never worked the finance end of the oil industry, so my guess is as good as yours.
Well, I know that you at least probably play around in the market a little more than I ever have. I've just watched it and studied it, and not really well either, mind you. But I was the guy that you sent to go get it out of the ground, not as much as you sent me to go to Wall Street and sell it for you. I was not that guy.
Well, I did. When COVID hit, I had been investing in Occidental Petroleum and USA Compression, which is a company that makes turbines with diesels that pumps the gas in pipelines. And I even invested in Shell Midstream a pipeline operation. So that all has worked out very well. Most of those stocks went up in price and haven't really gone down that much. So the world runs on energy, even though it's a nuclear age. My dad had a famous one-page ad in 1958 in Life magazine, when Life magazine was really big, 11 by 14. And my dad in 1958 was a young man, and he was a geologist for Union Oil of California. And he said, the world runs on cheap oil and gas. He was asking, as a representative of his company, for fair competition and absolute minimum government involvement. And it was really genius, and it's true today. The world runs ideally on very economical food and energy. Then you, me, everyone can go out, live a good life, make a lot of mistakes, learn, travel, see, and do. And that's what humans are supposed to do, and evolve their spirit with God. But the bad guys have arranged to have very high price of everything. And I would believe England is behind that. What country has always hated Russia the very most? England. So they're always putting someone else in front, like their CIA in the US, to go do some sabotage. But England is eternally hateful against Russia, and they are the most motivated. And Americans make the best allies with Russia. As you know, in World War II, we gave them a tremendous amount of airplanes and tanks and equipment. And Russians, as you know, killed 3 out of 4 Germans in Nazis in World War II. They bore the brunt of it. And so the nation, when I was there in 2007 in Moscow, on TV was still all the old black and white reruns of movies made that glorified Russians fighting World War II. Russians have a very, very long memory. They remember Napoleon's war, and they remember Nazi Germany's war. So they're kind of stuck in that way of thinking. They like killing Nazis, and Russia is always fighting deep state. So I would put the blame on England. I don't trust them at all.
Well, I got a little piece of data today that was passed along to me in one of those moments where I took a quick break this morning when I got up and started sitting at my desk and was trying to catch up on all the freaking emails I got. I got a short little nap this morning and got right to work. But somebody sent me something. And what it was is a video a guy made describing how the Queen's family tree works. And former Prince, now King Charles III, is related to Vladimir the Impaler. Or Vlad Dracul. So I went ahead and I Wikipedia'd it all, and I started digging a little bit. Spent about 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes looking at that. And then, interestingly enough, the Queen and the new king were heirs to the Vlad the Impaler family tree.
Yeah, there's a great movie I just watched, the Kingsman movies. There's 3 of them. They're about an imaginary spy organization made by rich people or barons of England. And the third one is really good. It's about the beginnings of the World War I. And it ties in a lot of history. And it's a brilliant movie. And it's called The Kingsman.
Okay.
And and basically the royalty of England had a German name. They were German. And at that time, they changed their name to Windsor.
Yeah, imagine that.
And that's totally real. You can look that up on Wikipedia.
Well, I try when it comes to historical research and intelligence. I do trust I know how much you research. I've been to your home there and I've seen your desk, so I know how busy a guy you are with that.
No, I don't know. I just have a talent for absorbing a lot of material and then coming up with really bizarre conclusions.
Yeah, but face it, the current monarchy in England didn't get to where they are by drinking rainbow Kool-Aid. They are ruthless, and they're still ruthless. And now they got an idiot as the head of the family. So real quick, Abraham, I see that Glock has joined us now, and T-Bone has joined us now. What do you have to say about today, Glock? What are your thoughts?
You can make me turn my mic on.
Uh-oh.
Well, my thing is kind of along the line with Burke over there. What if Russia is not the bad guy and Ukraine is actually the bad guy connected with our potato and some of the other elites, and he's actually fighting the good fight against all the nasty stuff that Ukraine has been doing that's been being hidden with our potato and his family and the other elites. So, and my theory is, my belief is that God's in control of all of it. And if we don't know how crappy it is, we don't always clean the bathroom every week just because we do it every week, which I used to do. Most people wait until it looks really nasty and then they clean it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what the world is doing. We're seeing how really nasty and rotten it is, so that it's waking up people. Hey, it's time to clean out. And God's going to help us clean it out and use some of us here to help him on that quest. That's my thoughts, guys.
I agree. It's definitely cleaning it out. I noticed today that YouTube removed that viral pro-family speech from incoming Italian PM Giorgia Meloni, where she was talking about, God, family, country. Poof, that's gone. Can't say that anymore. That's not the right stuff. And they're mad at Serbia. Of course, they're not part of EU yet, although they're trying to get there. They're mad at Hungary. They're mad at everybody. So I think the people know something's wrong, and they're starting to question. And yeah, I would agree. I honestly, I don't think Putin is the devil, and I don't think that Zelensky is an altar boy. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, if I can break in
Robert.
here and make a comment from Glock 22, that it's well known that Trump communicates with a signal flag being the dresses that Melania wears. And today, under Telegram's Melania Trump channel, she posted a picture of herself walking with Donald Trump, and her dress is really amazing. Do you know how the Soviet Navy men and many Soviet men or Russian men will wear that T-shirt that's white with the blue or the black stripes that are horizontal? Well,
the entire Russian military wears that. Yeah.
Okay, so now I want you, if you still can look at Comlink's chat. I just sent that picture, and it shows Trump walking like on grass with Melania. They're holding hands. He's got a black suit with a striped tie that kind of matches her dress. Now, her dress, up until it goes from calf length up to below her chest, it has got the same patterns of that I just indicated of the Russian army. Then over her shoulders and across her breast is a reverse pattern of that, black with white stripes that covers her front or her breasts. So it's a big, from me having friends, that are Russians, I'm like, oh, it's like her breast is being held together by the Russian T-shirt that the military wears.
Yeah.
In other words, I do believe that Trump absolutely is he's in a perfect position to broker peace. He never stated that he was against the Russians going in and doing the Ukraine war. He never spoke against it originally, but now he says that he would never have allowed it if he was president, that never would have happened. He didn't strongly condemn it, in other words. So this is I do believe in the plan. And Biden is doing everything that sets Trump up to broker world peace.
Good.
Mhm.
It's interesting. I posted on Discord earlier today. It was a video made by a British kid in Russia going into one of their shopping malls. Basically, very, very much like our Walmart. But I was totally in awe all the stuff in there. I mean, God, eggs $1 a gallon, milk 50 cents a gallon, and this thing was just filled. And I'm sitting going, well, so much for 7 months of sanctions, and the Russian economy is falling apart. I think their economy is doing great. So, but you don't hear any of that stuff. No, I agree with you, Glock. I don't think, as I said, Putin's not the devil, and Zelensky's not an altar boy. And I commend the Ukrainian fighters. I think they're giving a good fight. But politically, this is a disaster. It's a war that should have never happened, like most wars, pretty much all wars.
Well, actually, this war is set up to have world peace because Ukraine was artillery shelling Russia for the past 8 years. So that's kind of a bother. Like I live in Reno, and what if Carson was for 8 years artillery shelling where I live? After a while, you say this has to stop. So Russia, from its perspective, not only is stopping all future artillery shelling, but it also, more importantly, is that there were definitely, without a question, labs that were designed to take out Russians, not black people, not any other race. So he had a duty. So since Greek age times, it has been a Western enlightened thing that, hey, if you know that the enemy nation next to you is hatching a plan to kill every single one of your citizens in your own nation, then the whole world has agreed, yes, you are right to preemptively stop that other nation from killing everyone in your nation. That's what you do when you swear an oath as president. So in other words, for 2,000 years, the world has said, yes, yes, yes. Any sane leader who knows that his neighbor has an effectual plan and will wipe out everyone in one's own nation, yes, of course, you preemptively attack. So yes, wars are what make peace. So we were raised as hippies. All wars are bad. No, they aren't. The reason we're talking now is because we've had some good wars that enable us to do this. It's only wars that create peace. Look at it in the way that the progressives didn't tell us. So Russia is going to come out shiny. America is going to come out shiny because Trump will say, look, I didn't do all this crazy stuff. The deep state that's controlled by the central bank families of the world did it. And finally, they're being exposed. They're the ones that run MI6, and they're the ones that they had MI6 make the CIA. So the bad part of the CIA is always doing the bidding of those infinitely rich central bank families. In fact, today, the Julian Assange channel of Telegram said that the Rothschild family itself has enough money to support, in a good fashion, every single person in the world for 2 generations. So that's a tremendous amount of money. And it's very important that people on this call understand what it is to create money out of nothing and loan it to governments, to buy a government bond, to loan it to governments, and then the citizens pay back that capital and interest and fees. So these families took over the right of America to print currency. The United States does not print currency. The central bank does, and it's owned in majority by Rothschild. And
Well,
then
our Federal Reserve and our mint prints money,
but our Federal Reserve is not owned by the Americans. It's owned It's owned by Rothschild 56%. He owns all of them that, and the reason is he cuts in the member banks at 44%. So it is.
All right, well, real quick. What's your thought on where Israeli Mossad plays into all this? as far
Well,
as the families and the banks.
okay, then all you have to do is look at that famous letter. I forget the name of it, that originally helped to create Israel. It was written to Lord Rothschild from the King of England. So that's the weird thing. The creation of Israel was all through the Rothschilds. So what do the stupidest pastors on earth say? Israel, Israel, Israel's perfect. Israel's the will of God, blah, 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 blah. And actually, the truth is much more bizarre. God will protect Israel, but only after the Rothschild or the central bank families are taken out, which is the Khazarian mafia, which is based in Ukraine. All money laundering was Ukraine. So that was the third thing. The first thing is Russians didn't like being shelled, for infinity and attacked and had war against. Number two, they didn't like the end of the world scenario of those labs killing every Russian. And number three, they didn't like the world having a dark sites in Ukraine that laundered everyone's money.
Okay. Well, here's your picture. I just put it up. I did get it from you, but I actually had to source it from Telegram. Kind of did a little finagling and brought it up on the screen, but that's the picture you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, and it's absolute positive. Trump does signal intelligence with the dresses of Melania.
When was this pic? I want to know the date on this photograph, because you can't have intelligence without having specific dates, times, locations. So when and where was this photograph taken?
I don't know. Go to Telegram to Melania Trump channel. That's where I got it.
Well, I did. I mean, I got the link from you, but I didn't see anywhere where it said a date or a specific location on this.
Well, that's a good point, but I do know that some computer autists can just take any image and find that info. I'm not that smart.
Another thing about every dress that Melania Trump has ever worn, particularly publicly, has meant something. It either represented a flag, a Tiffany dress that was originally Jackie Kennedy's color, the Tiffany blue.
Yes.
Everything that she wears is representative of something that's specifically important.
Yes. She wore the white hat in front of the pyramids on that famous trip where she went alone without Trump to Cairo, Egypt, to the Cheops pyramid. And that pyramid is the number one symbol of the deep state. And she was there with that white hat that had been designed, her whole outfit for that thing, that she represented the white hat team.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice of, other than the fact that it's a hot ass desert and wearing white makes sense, and wearing a big hat to protect yourself from the sun makes sense. I mean, you can read a lot into it, but it did have symbolism. That I will admit. I'll never forget that. That was a huge symbol. If she was trying to send a message, that message was received loud and clear, Lima Charlie.
Right. And Juan O'Savin talks at, no end about the last two dresses that Melania wore. When she left the White House on January 20th of 2020, she was wearing total black, which Juan O'Savin says on the signal on ships, black means end of message, and then they'll start a new message. Then when she appeared out of Air Force One in Florida, she was wearing that orange colored Gucci design dress that it actually represented a formula that Juan O'Savin had put in his book. And it's MAGA to the cubes over the election equals MAGA cubed over C corn, meaning the CIA and the deep state. And MAGA cubed meant not just Trump's MAGA from when he first ran for office, but that the citizenry would rise up and become intelligent and activated and triple as strong as it was in 2016. So election, he never forgets or stops talking about that steal. So the 2020 election, E equals MAGA to the cubed over C, corn, the product of the CIA and all the deep state. So that was her last two dresses.
Safer argument, I would call it brighter days ahead would have been the signal I got, hopefully, but I'm very simplistic in my thinking when it comes to a woman dressed up like that.
Trump's
I'm
message
usually looking asymmetrically at her, not necessarily at the color, but maybe the style, so to speak. I will say I posted the Baker letter again at the Discord and the Patreon for those in here that are members there can go and review that. That's not. I want to see a lot more questions on the Baker letter because I'm not just going to come out and start spilling all of what I know about that situation. If somebody comes to me with a specific question about it, I'll look at it and give you some kind of answer based off what I do know.
Okay.
But the Baker letter, I'm not going to get into that in the program, guys. So I don't want to take up the whole night here. But the Baker letter was written by one of the original members of not the QAnon, but the group Anonymous. They're a hacktivist group. They're the ones that make the funny videos with the Guy Fawkes mask, and they're all over YouTube and change their voices. And they discuss everything from Epstein to Julian Assange to the bad things that Obama was doing and the bad things that Bush was doing. And that they're anonymous. And most of these anonymous guys aren't even kids anymore. They started out, they're some are Gen X, some are Gen Z, some are millennial, but now a lot of them have grown up. And that's where the Q originated out of that movement. And so I'm not going to say the Q movement is not real. It's very real. What I'm going to say is it's not what everybody thought it was, and it's not ever going to return to being what it was. For those that want to kind of look a little deeper into how operations like that work inside and outside the intelligence community, go look up LifeLog and what LifeLog became when DARPA started that program. And of course, if you go and do your research, you're probably going to do like Intrepid did here and get yourself banned as quickly as possible. But LifeLog was a program started by the government. So was Twitter, Google, and all these others. These are government programs. These were not some smart kid in the Silicon Valley in his garage, like the guy that started Apple, Steve Jobs. These people were put in the positions they were put in for a reason. Who they are, where they came from, and how easily influenced or controllable they are, so to speak. But it would be nice if somebody would actually sit down and write a book, and I would implore our friend Burke here to do that because the guy's brilliant. He knows a lot of things, and would given the time, he's probably going to come back on here and read more of his book that he already had published. But
okay.
I think he would. I think he would do the country a great service by putting out some kind of I don't want to say too elementary, but something that the layman can understand. Because honestly, even the smartest people I know have a hard time wrapping their mind around all the intricacies and data around the Q movement. And we'll save the Q data for another time. We're not going to get into that tonight, but I'll tell you what, that is the best looking presidential couple I ever saw in my life since John F. Kennedy and his wife.
And she's not even a doctor. How does she know these things?
Are you talking about Dr. Gildo?
Oh, Dr. Jill. Yes, Dr. Jill. Hey, you're talking about books. If you want to learn about the Fed, there's a great book. I think it came out in the early 90s entitled The Creature from Jekyll Island. Highly recommend everybody read that. That will explain how they created the Federal Reserve. The Creature from Jekyll Island. Jekyll Island was what, off North Carolina, where all the bankers and rich people got together in 1913 and said, hey, let's create this thing called the Fed. Sounds a great idea to us. And nobody knew about it. Good book.
Right. And it was part of the reason for the Titanic. So the this is a Babylonian system, and they're terrorists, and they don't like to just, if they kill someone, one person, they just soon do a whole ship like the Titanic and do a MK Ultra, shock the world and do what they do.
Well, I'm going to jump in real quick, not to interrupt you guys, but I'm going to finish out the program here with a short version of the rest of our Sitrep. Real quick, I just wanted to pull this up and show everybody the failed states map. And the United States is actually right here on the scale. We're at a 20% failure projection. We don't want to be that. We want to be zero failed state projection. But the whole entire world, nobody's at zero. And the only countries, this is kind of an interesting data point, the only countries that are at a 10, meaning they're doing well, amazingly enough, are Germany. I can't really scroll into this map, but we've got Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Netherlands, Belgium, Northern and the mainland of, no, that's not Northern. So Ireland, which is unbelievable, hard to believe anyway. Iceland, Canada, and Australia. These are the states that are doing the greatest right now. We're on the third tier on the scale, 20% failure projection. And of course, Africa's a freaking mess. Russia's a mess. Pretty much everybody else in the world's a mess. Mexico's always in the toilet. But looking at this map is kind of interesting because what I'm going to follow this up with real quick, and I'm actually going to get rid of that whole entire screen because it bugs me to look at it. I want to go over real quick some information that was already shared in some of the other Sitreps, but I think I need to share it with you guys. And before I jump into this real quick, like I said earlier, I'm not here to scare you. I don't want this program to be all doom and gloom. But we are here to cover actual data, facts, and what's happening in our world to help better prepare us, not only physically with our supply chains and our health and our security, but also mentally, help us prepare mentally for hard times. My friend, Professor Burke, you that we need to think positive and we need to try to be positive. And I'm going to take Monkey's advice, and I'm going to, do that once or twice a month if I can. Step away, go do something else, and just clear my mind of a whole day of just clearing my mind and not looking at the computer. Go do something else. That means I'm going to have to leave my phone somewhere where it's not on me so that I can do that. But that's a good idea because that's taking care of our mental and our physical health by doing that. So I want to share that Monkey shit with everybody, and I want to put that out there as well. So I'm not going to get into the investment bank research stuff that I was looking at earlier because it's just a whole bunch of numbers, and it's very difficult to kind of read through it and try to wrap my mind around it. But if you guys do want to follow the financial side or at least get updates and kind of stay ahead of that, Intrepid's been real good about keeping things posted in the intelligence, the financial intelligence channel on the Discord. And that's been a huge benefit. And I may be dropping a whole lot of stuff in there overnight. So if you guys get a bunch of beeps on your phone, just turn your phones off or put them on silent, or just, go into your settings and put Discord on silent if you need to do that. But there's a lot of stuff coming up concerning failed states. And, well, we need to pay attention to that because England, from what my understanding, England came very close to a complete stock market crash over there in their economy just 2 days ago. And now their bank, the Bank of England, is going to push a purchase of bonds to basically create money like what Burke was talking about, bail themselves out. And when they flush their economy with that money that they're going to take from purchasing bonds, basically getting a loan on it, and creating money out of nothing like he was talking about, that's going to sink us and China and Russia even further. China's barely hanging on. So are we at the moment. We're not doing any better. But that's going to push us all into a worse situation. This could be probably the biggest story in the next 30 days. Depending on how this thing plays out in England. It's very dangerous. It's very concerning to those that are watching the markets. I don't watch the markets. I'm not a market analyst. I'm just not that smart. I'm smart about other things, but not that. But I'm going to read this real quick. Bank of England narrowly averts collapse. This is less than 24 hours old. It came from Port Observer, and I'm just going to read a little bit of what they put on here. The Bank of England, the world's second oldest, announced £45 million of emergency government bond purchases after a bond market crisis erupted yesterday. Plummeting bond prices threatened the forced liquidation of British government bonds purchased on borrowed money by a multitude of financial institutions, which Burke always reminds us are all owned by the same people. The barely avoided margin, and honestly, guys, Burke called this a couple of weeks back. He called this and explained a lot of this to me, historical data points versus what we're seeing now. And this is real time. The barely avoided margin call could have triggered forced liquidations of positions across markets on a scale equivalent to the 2008 world financial crisis. Now, that was a global financial crisis. But born out of that was one of the better and stronger economies. Once we got out of 2008 and got rid of the Kenyan and we got Trump in there, we came back strong in the middle of a pandemic. We were doing well. China was doing well. Evergrande was there. Of course, they overstretched their means, and now they're pretty much default every way they turn, and they're done. They're done. And they, being over 20%, 25% of the economy, I think it's 21.8% of the economy, the GDP of China, they pretty much just sunk China by grossly outspending what they could in real estate. So I'll continue here. The U.S. Federal Reserve wrecking ball is just now crashing into the Western world after decimating Asian currencies and markets last month. Global inflation, shortages of commodities, and excessive money printing of reserve currencies are driving a global recession. Epic expected down misery to hit nearly all households making less than $300,000 a year, and a continued push by ruling elites to depersonalize life for the working class. This financial and cultural train wreck will likely result in a series of political leadership reversals similar to this week's Italian elections, which saw a strong right-leaning sweep across nearly the entire country. That's from Mike over at Port Observer, so credit to him. These guys do phenomenal work, and it's every day. These guys work like we do. They work every day. Go ahead.
I just want to say, thinking about thinking increases your thinking. And by God, is this the man that I met so many years ago? I mean, your ability to be a broadcaster and analyze world events, military and otherwise, is astonishing. But I want to leave you with something funny, because as this is all happening in my spirit, I'm very happy. Does everyone remember watching the crazy TV show called The A-Team? Mr. Okay, so the leader was John Hannibal Smith. I'm going to read this very short description from Wikipedia. So here's the fake character done by George Burpard. Now listen to this. Ex-United States Army Special Forces Commando Lieutenant Colonel John Hannibal Smith is the leader of the A-Team. Now listen to this. He is brilliant. He's a brilliant tactician and a master of disguise. Hannibal is distinguished by his cigar smoking, black gloves, disguises, and his catchphrase, "I love it when a plan comes together." Always on the jazz, a phrase coined by BA or Mr. T, meaning that Hannibal thrives on adventure and life-threatening situations. He seems to genuinely enjoy every situation they get into. So enjoy this, y'all. We're on the verge of thriving and flourishing. It's the greatest thing that ever happened.
That's interesting, Hannibal. So he was the pilot, correct? He was also a pilot?
No, he was the cigar smoking older guy.
Okay. That's okay. Well, it's been a long time since I saw that show. I don't know, maybe 1982, 83, maybe.
Yeah, the pilot was Howling Mad Murdoch.
Murdoch.
And Mr. T was crazy. Whenever he got knocked out, he would fall on a car horn and the horn would honk. They made everyone the fool.
Yep. Yeah, I remember Murdoch. He was the crazy one and was the pilot dude, and I always liked him. He was my favorite. He was definitely, and like in MASH. I guess my favorite character in MASH was not the doctors. It was not the hot bimbo blonde. No, it wasn't any
Hot
of those.
Lips.
Houlihan.
Hot Lips Houlihan. Yeah.
My favorite one was the cross-dressing private first class that wanted to piss off everybody, so they would send him home. No, I don't remember his name, but I do miss when they used to make good television back then. And of course, you can't get quality entertainment television like that anymore.
That was Corporal Klinger.
Corporal Klinger. There you go. He wasn't a PhD.
When I was in junior high, the really good-looking cheerleader girls, they would say, "Your nickname is Radar."
You know what?
I didn't like that.
You know what? That fits. In more ways than I can explain, but yeah.
There you go.
He was the most dangerous man on that base, on that MASH unit.
He was a geek. Come on. I like Rambo.
Dude. He had everybody fooled, bro.
Rambo Radar.
Yeah, Rambo Radar. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and
comedy. Last thing I'm going to say that's comical and evidently real was our esteemed vice president today in Korea, talking about how North Korea is our great ally. My God.
Did she really say North Korea?
He said North Korea was our great ally at the DMZ. That woman is a moron. So you can't make this stuff up.
I just pray every day she's one tampon shy of bleeding out, bro. Honestly. I just hope she trips over one of her heels and it sticks her in the ass just right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll clean it up.
Yeah.
Well,
I can't believe that's unbelievable. I have not seen that in the news today, but I have not.
Look it up. Just happened. Yep. She's at the DMZ making her speech. She can't do anything right.
Be careful. You guys got to be careful because, Mr. T, he was called BA. Do you know what that stands for?
Badass.
Bad attitude.
Yeah, okay.
Big animal.
Yeah.
And a bunch of others. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cover this real quick so we can go to the final closing here.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you, Bert. Israel offers to share nuclear secrets. In a speech to the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, or Commission, if you want to call it that. The Israeli Atomic Energy Commission chief Moshe Idri announced Israel would consider sharing nuclear technology with Abraham Accords countries in response to the IAEA's inclusion of Israeli nuclear capabilities on its annual agenda. Israel views this inclusion as a politically driven contradiction of the IAEA mandate advanced by the Arab group of countries. Idri said he hoped increasing nuclear cooperation through the Abraham Accords would advance direct dialogue in the region threatened by Iran's clandestine nuclear activities. The analysis on that is Israel is concerned about Iran's development of nuclear weapons, but so are the Sunni Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. Now, let me go into that a little bit. Sunnis and Shiites, guys. Sunnis and Shiites, they hate each other. A large part of that outside of Saudi Arabia is what affects their geopolitical tendencies to do one or the other when it comes to making decisions, both militarily and politically. Within Saudi Arabia, which is a Sunni state, you have Mecca. Mecca is the holiest of holy lands for all of Islam around the world, and it's in a Sunni stronghold. And a lot of countries don't like that. If they could annex that part of Saudi Arabia to be a non-proliferation, or not even a proliferation, but a non-declared state territory, they would. I mean, they would be all about that. But that'll never happen. Saudi's never going to give that up, and they shouldn't. Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, these are all Sunni Gulf states. All can see an existential threat from Iran, particularly since Iran has spent the decades since its Islamic revolution bullying and threatening its Arabian Gulf neighbors. Israel has effectively given an ultimatum to the IAEA that if it continues to blacklist Israel's nuclear capability, it will gladly share its nuclear technology with neighboring states who feel threatened by a nuclear Iran. This legitimate threat of nuclear proliferation should put some shut up on the IAEA's plate. Now, the IAEA is, well, let's just say that's the leftist extremist of the nuclear agencies, predominantly run and operated out of Europe and as well as Israel, and part of that being in the United States. So Israel is a lot like the United States, where they're heavily divided over there between left and right, same as we are here. Netanyahu obviously being the conservative, the right, and an absolute great leader for Israel, though he's had his faults. The guy they have in there now, we don't know what this guy's going to do. We really don't. So projecting any kind of intelligence out of Israel is very difficult, always has been, always will be, as far as state stability and their government. Moving on real quick, Russia, West rejection of referendum A, refusal of democracy for Russia and over the Ukrainian referendums. Norway deploys military to protect energy infrastructure. I covered that earlier. So Norway, Denmark, Sweden, these countries are going to start deploying their military within their countries and their EEZ, which is their exclusive economic zone that's offshore. They're going to start putting military assets at their offshore drilling platforms and all their oil fields and any other energy infrastructure like refineries, plants, generations, anywhere that they create energy and power. And that's going to take up a lot of military asset availability for NATO, even though these countries just joined and became part of NATO. Now they're because of this Nord Stream pipeline incident, that's going to really take up a lot of assets. They have a choice. Let's go play in Ukraine and Eastern Europe and Poland, and let's go stage and train with and set up and build the infrastructure with the U.S. and England and every other country involved with the preparations for what Ukraine could become, or let's go protect our own assets. And what these countries are going to do is they're going to focus inward. Can't blame them. Latvia and Slovakia, from what I understand, are becoming failed states. Latvia declares state of emergency on eastern border. Monkey covered the fact that Hungary has now got a huge NOTAM or TFR secure flight area, restricted area, similar to what we have on our Mexican border in Texas. They're focusing on their border because of all the people that are leaving out of Serbia, Herzegovina. I think there's one or two guys in here that have been over in that region in that AO. These are Croatia and Kosovo. These are very unstable right now. So they are aligned with Russia, but they're also being heavily supported and supplied by China right now. And Hungary's concerned about that, as well as other Eastern blocs. Russia restricts access, opens conscription office on the Georgian border. From my understanding now, it's 1 million to 1.2 million that are going to conscript, or as in another term used, draft men of any age into the Russian military. And then, of course, the light, pathetic training they're going to receive, they'll be sent to the Ukrainian front to probably strengthen, after tomorrow, strengthen the Donbass region of Donetsk in eastern Ukraine. Beyond that, I'm also understanding that the Russian government is taking into serious consideration drafting women into their military to support the structure that supports the front. In other words, they're taking a lot of men and they're sending them to Ukraine. They need other people to replace that personnel within Russia. So they're going to pull women into the military as well. That's kind of a scary thing. But Israel, I mean, everybody in Israel serves. Well, in Russia, all these women will be in support and supply missions, probably positions, as well as medical and other administrative positions in the Russian military. I doubt they're going to send women to the front, but Russia has done that in the past. They did when Stalingrad was being overrun by Nazi Germany. So I wouldn't put it past them historically to do that again if this thing goes hot and goes bad. Czechoslovakia, fringe groups, protesters call for resignation of Czech government. Czechoslovakia, the Chechens as well. These countries are very unstable. Some of the most brutal military, I guess we could call them warlords in these countries. That'd be the one place on the planet, I think, besides North Korea, you would not want to be captured or caught. These guys are brutal, and they've already gone into Ukraine. They made a show of it in the beginning. Now they pulled out and kind of decided they don't want to be any part of it. But in the beginning of the Russian invasion into Ukraine, they were very involved and very responsible for a lot of the war crimes that were committed inside Ukraine. We haven't heard a lot out of them lately. Maybe the Ukrainians killed them all. Who knows? But it wouldn't hurt my feelings any. Colombia and Venezuela border reopened. So that border down there has been closed for quite a while. We had 4 contractors down there playing Let's Go Kidnap the Dictator of Venezuela, and they all got popped, and they're sitting down there rotting in a prison right now. But there's been a lot of border conflict between Venezuela and Colombia over territory, and as well as drugs and supply chain issues down there. So that's an interesting one that they're opening the border. That means that relations between those two countries are starting to normalize. Coming back here, I'm not really going to go into North Korea and Kamala Harris and the twin missile test. I'm just not going to go into that, but they're expecting prior to elections in the United States, midterms, right before we go to vote in November, North Korea may pull another missile test and try to disrupt things. That's pretty much the only way they really can disrupt things here at home. And I hear a Rush Limbaugh paper flip in the background. That's cool. I like that. Makes us sound like we're busy.
Oh, I've got something for you. Abraham.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said you like the Howling Mad Murdoch on the A-Team.
I did.
Right? Okay. I'll describe. Ex-United States Army pilot Captain H.M. Howling Mad Murdoch was the best chopper pilot and maybe fixed-wing pilot of the Vietnam War, who is either mentally unstable or exceptionally good at pretending to be so. Though he interned at a psychiatric hospital, he routinely escapes easily to accompany the A-Team on their missions and became Hannibal's second in command. The symptoms of his so-called insanity varies from episode to episode, but generally include self-identification with fictional characters, hallucinations, belief in the intelligence of inanimate objects, among others. And he frequently refers to his invisible dog, Billy. Well, I think we can all identify with him.
I just like the fact that he's unstable, and it kind of reminds me of something that General Rommel said during World War II when the Americans went into Africa. He tried to express strongly to Adolf Hitler that the Americans are unlike any enemy we'll ever fight. Our military is very structured, very disciplined, very orderly, and very controlled. The Americans are like a loose cannon. They're uncontrollable. They're reckless. They're insane, and they're a mess.
That's right.
And we may lose the war because of that. He warned Hitler of that, and so I did not quote Rommel verbatim, but I don't think anybody really can. But,
no, that's true.
So I got to finish this real quick, Bert.
Okay.
Let me get to it. China reports lowest yuan valuation rate since 2010. This data will kind of go up against our England bank here. Despite a host of Chinese government interventions in its currency, the yuan tumbled to a record low against the dollar yesterday. Bloomberg reported the offshore yuan traded outside of China fell to 7.2386. That's 7.2 against the dollar at the close of markets yesterday. Coincidentally, the British pound sank to a record low against the dollar over fears its rudderless economy is in trouble. Investors are dumping local currencies to buy the dollar, a traditional safe haven, which has become even more valuable due to inflation fighting rate hikes by the U.S. Fed. Now they're dumping because historically, traditionally, it's been a safe haven to go to. But right now, we are on the verge of a collapse ourselves. It's a very unstable market. Wouldn't take much to tip us. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of faith in the U.S. dollar personally right now. I know that Panama's threatened for years to pull out of the U.S. dollar. The Philippines, I don't even think are. I think they're pretty much on board with being an ally of the U.S., but being a financial ally to China at the moment. Can't blame them. I'm going to get into real quick the low-intensity conflict intelligence summary. So I'm going to cover a little bit here at home that's important. Shut him down, please. Leftist, and we do kind of study the left and right extremists here at home domestically, so I'm going to cover this and make it quick. This is a Washington, D.C. date and time to be determined, according to Forward Observer. Leftist aid groups prepare aid for Hurricane Ian. So while they're not protesting and burning down our federal buildings and running around screaming, "We love communism," they're going to help aid groups and support and be prepared to aid Central Florida. They're calling it the Central Florida Mutual Aid Network and North Georgia Socialist Rifle Association are preparing relief efforts for victims of Hurricane Ian. I wonder if the victims voted for Trump, if they're going to receive any relief effort on that. That would be interesting. Groups are still gathering supply lists, which include equipment for clearing fallen trees, mobile power banks, and mobile cooking stations. Hey, I'm all about, them doing a good thing for their community. I don't have to like their politics. This is America, so they can run around and act like an idiot all they want with the hammer and sickle wrapped around their neck. I don't care. But this is a Washington, D.C. effort. So I am also curious, since they're going after the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, how they'll have time to raise in a leftist city that's broke as dick and have no money, and everybody can't donate much because no one can even feed their kids right now in a liberal stronghold of Washington, D.C. How they're going to raise all this aid effort and relief. So that's something to keep eyes on. But keep in mind, that's how they get into these communities and build their networks, is by showing up to disasters. And a lot of people are foolish, and they kind of go for it. You're going to bring me food and clothes and things I need. Oh, I'll join your movement. Yeah, screw America. Why is the government not here helping me? So a lot of weak-minded, uneducated fools will go along with that program. That is my opinion, and my opinion alone. Scrolling down a little bit further. Activity far-left activists plan to protest the IMF and central banks, just like I mentioned, in Washington, D.C. to demand decarbonization and decolonization efforts. The protest will start with panel discussion and a planned dance party to disrupt the IMF and World Bank records. Every time the IMF or the World Bank has a meeting and they have, they march into D.C. to hold these conferences, these guys show up and do everything they can to disrupt them. These are the enemies of our enemies, folks. But one thing I'll say about the far left extremists, they call them activists. I call them extremists because of their historical record of being violent and breaking the law and causing property damage and threatening people's lives and even killing people. In my book, they're extremists. They want a decarbonization and decolonization effort. Decolonization kind of goes with the World Economic Forum's depopulation effort. So, these guys are not choosing these words randomly. They're taking the words out of it. And I get these same sourced emails and notifications that this team gets. I get them as well. That's how I was able to share some of the Zoom calls with you guys to go listen in on. These people use this language, and they specifically choose these words for a reason. So when they use these big words, listen and take them for what they're saying, at its worth. So there's not a whole lot else on the domestic front. I'm going to end tonight's podcast and Sitrep kind of just going over one more time the two boxes, and I don't have the map up here in front of me. I can actually bring that up real quick. Give me 1 second here, and I'll do a little drag and grab. I want to mention that right now the first time in TCG Global and the first time in American Legionnaire that we've ever come on to our community and given a warning, so to speak. Anything more critical than, say, hey, you live in Memphis and there's a major Antifa protest or BLM protest, it's probably a good weekend to go camping and get the hell out of Dodge. Beyond that, we've never really come up with warnings to our community here with anything more major than that up until now. And what I mean by that is what's going on in Ukraine, Nord Stream pipeline, nation state collapses, and a lot of other things. And right now it's kind of drawn our attention to maybe we should start giving our folks here a little heads up on, what you need to be planning or preparing to do, and start right away. Being near a coastline right now is not a great idea. What I mean by that, I'll back that up with a little data. Russia plans to, and they haven't hit it, it's not classified in Russia, it's common knowledge, they plan to use, if they're ever attacked as retaliation, what they call a shoreline killer, or what they also call a beach killer, port killer. This is a torpedo with a nuclear warhead on it, fired from a submarine at the shoreline, detonated, which what that does is called denial of access. That denies us use of that shoreline militarily, as well as for any other purposes, maritime or land-based operations, missions, or even agriculture, and just access. So if they hit our east shoreline with 6 or 8 of these nuclear-tipped torpedoes, there goes that coastline. Same thing in the Gulf, same thing in the Pacific. There are people that believe that they've gotten this technology in China and they plan to use it there. The Club K's monkeys covered. I'm not going to go into that. You guys can do your research on that if you want, but it's all there. Having a hard time bringing up my links here, so give me a minute. I'm trying to bring up I guess I got all of them. So, and there are none of them ones I wanted. So let me see if I can scroll through here real quick, and I'll bring up the boxes, guys. I want to show you this map. And what this is it's kind of going to give you an idea of what the Department of Defense is putting out as what they're calling a safe zone. I'm not sure why I can't find it. I will here in a minute, though. I know where it's at. So this map shows 2 boxes, an east and a west box over the United States. And these are what they're calling an elevated area. In other words, you're not at sea level. You're far enough above sea level that if there was a serious geographical event, natural solar storm, polar flip, such things like that, basically, a major disaster that affected the seas. I've got to get a new mouse. This thing is absolute garbage. You want to be able to access underground safe haven, cave structure, tunnel structure, something underground to protect yourself from any major solar activity. But as well as you want to be above sea levels. And the place that I'm at regionally in the Midwest, West Midwest right now is within the box in this location. Bear with me here, guys. I'm still trying to find this. So basically what I'm getting at, the point I'm trying to make here is right now is a good time to consider one of these 2 areas as your relocation area. And if I can't find this map, and I know it was on this computer, so it's got to be here. Yeah, maybe I don't have it saved in here. I thought I did. I am just not seeing it. So moving on, the map that I was going to show you guys is the Appalachian region. I'm going to bring up a bigger map here so I can kind of just make the box for you guys to look at. And then we're going to get off of here and shut it down for the night. We've all got big day tomorrow. this region right here from northeastern, so it would be southwestern Pennsylvania, northeastern West Virginia. This box, if you can follow my cursor, this box goes along the Appalachian Range, goes down and dips into Tennessee, covers just a little bit of North Carolina, fair amount, maybe 1/4 of West Virginia and most of the state, or Virginia and most of the state of West Virginia, a little bit of Kentucky. Just this area right here is an elevated mountain range, and it's a pretty decent mountain range. I've been out there. I spent a lot of time in this area. That's where you're going to want to be. If there is a sea level rise or a major catastrophe, and if there is a attack on the East Coast, you want to be far enough away from the coastline to where fallout's going to blow out towards where the trade winds carry it, north and east. You want to be west of that. Washington, D.C. is obviously number one. Number two, New York City. These are all major targets for an attack on the United States, so you don't want to be close to those areas, any major city for that matter. Denver, that's one of the top 5 places to attack in the United States due to NORAD and our Cheyenne complex here. The other box that I want to show you, and the DOD shortened their version of from what I got from suspicious observers, but it's very similar. It cuts into a little bit of North and South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, New Mexico, and just a small bit of the El Paso area, Texas. This box goes like this. Right down along the panhandle of Texas is what we call the armpit of Texas. And then back up around Albuquerque, Denver, and your major metro areas there. And then a little bit may cut over into the Utah area as well. So this is also what we refer to the eastern slope of the Rocky Mountain Range. And of course, that goes all the way to the coast and all the way from South America to Alaska. This Rocky Mountain region provides underground shelters, a lot of tunnel cave systems. It's elevated above sea level, high enough to where you wouldn't be affected. You'd have to go to a polar ice cap melting map to look at where the lowlands of the United States would be covered with water. So in preparation for, as much as we can possibly prepare for any event that may occur, whether it be natural or man-made, nuclear or solar, we've had to look at areas of the United States that are more survivable. And these areas that I just marked, these boxes, which I'll draw later and I'll actually make my own map of this. That way I have it ready. These are the areas you're going to want to be. So if you're in South Texas, you're in Florida, you're in New York or the upper Northeast, if you're up in the Seattle area, Southern California, guys, right now, TCG Global, as a collective, we feel that right now would be a good time to consider making your move. Now, some of you are also followers of S2 Underground, and you know that they're leaving the beltway, so to speak, of where they're at on the East Coast, and they're going to the mountains. They're doing it now. Their whole team is doing it. They're moving their families. They're getting the hell out of Dodge for many reasons, primarily because of inner city instability and civil unrest situations, but also because the box. The boxes are there. They've been there for decades. The military still uses these maps and considers these areas safe zones. So if you can get your butts out to the central Midwest, Western U.S. up against the Rocky Mountains, or get to the Appalachian Highlands, do it. Do it smart, though. Be sure you plan every move you make well in advance and do what you can. And with time being short, with everything so unstable in Europe and none of us knowing what's going to happen in the next 24 hours, it's just something to think about today and start working on tomorrow. So I want to put that out. Like I said, I'm not here to scare anybody or tell you there's an imminent threat coming. If there was, I'd be the first one jumping on here and doing a sit rep and sending notifications out to every one of you through the different platforms that we use. But right now, things are very critical. If there was a DEFCON, I would say we're at DEFCON 2, and we're pushing a 1 right now with Russia as well as China. Things are very unstable. They're only getting worse, and the guy that's in charge is doing everything he can to destabilize it even more every time he opens his mouth. And obviously what Intrepid just shared, our wonderful and prestigious vice president of the United States is over at the DMZ making a complete and total clown ass of herself. So that's our leadership, folks, and competence at its finest. We can't rely on them. We got to take care of ourselves. We are our own families, our own security elements. we are our own police. We are our own government, for that matter, at this point in time, because the government we have has failed. Effectively, it has failed. They have usurped their power. That's the word that we use as patriots in this country. They've usurped their power. They've gone beyond their limitations and the envelope allowed by the people. They're reckless. They're spending. Policies, everything, international relations, everything is collapsing in Washington, D.C. So effectively right now, as far as I'm concerned, they're done. We got to take care of our own. So we're going to be out here in the Denver region of the Midwest United States, and safe and comfy and cozy here where we're at. Winter's coming. Winter may be pretty tough with groceries, so if you guys can get out and get that stockpile, keep it going. Keep getting what you can as you can afford it, and do the best you can. Direct email me or message me, those that have contact with me, and if you have something for Intrepid, I will pass it along unless he wants to share his direct with you guys at some point. And we will stay in contact. We will keep monitoring everything day and night. So when he's up in the air being a upside down clown in an airplane, I'll be on the ground. And when he's on the ground, I'll probably still be on the ground because it's a lot safer down there. And we will keep eyes on the nets, guys. There's a lot of stuff happening and a lot of moving parts here. But follow Monkey, follow S2 Underground. Those guys are offline right now, but they will be back within a week or two. When they come back, you'll have us, you'll have Monkey, you'll have S2, you'll have Vigilance Elite, Sean Ryan and his people, and his interviews keep going. And those interviews are strategically done, guys. The information that they're sharing in a way that they're giving you information in a way you're not going to get it from anyone else. Mike Glover over at Phil Craft Survival is also someone that I would support and recommend as somebody who's legitimate. Definitely a good teacher, instructor, and somebody you can learn from and you can trust his information.
Hey, come on.
There's others out there, suspicious observers.
Where have you been on for 2.5 hours?
There's suspicious observers. That's that 3 to 5 minute sit rep every morning, or what we'll call just a briefing every morning with the solar weather, space weather activity, and how that's affecting what's happening on our globe. So unless you have anything else, Intrepid, I'll leave the last words for you, brother.
No, we've been on for 2.5 hours. I think it's time to get off. So
Yeah, I do too. It's been a long one.
yeah.
Here's the I'll just do this real quick for everybody. This is tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. I believe Mountain Time is where I'm at. So, but this could be local. Looks like we got a shoreline eye wall coming on at about roughly 8 a.m. in the morning in Charlotte, or no, correction, Charleston, South Carolina. Looks like it's going to be a direct hit, but I don't think it's going to be very powerful. Maybe a Category 1 at that point, but I haven't gotten an update on that yet. So, and then it's going to just kind of peter off up there into Kentucky and Virginia and the southern part of West Virginia, like a lot of them do. So if you live out in that area, be prepared for a little bit of rain. I know you guys have gotten a lot of it. Good luck. Won't take much to flood you out, so be prepared for that. That's it. TCG Global is signing off, and we will see you guys back here Sunday, and we will be here Sunday. That's all I got. God bless everybody. Be safe. We're out.
See you later.